If you've ever left a Bethlehem Church weekend message wanting to hear more and dig deeper, this podcast is for you. Come with us as Pastor Jason teaches us how to apply all the things we've learned.
So Bethlehem Church, friends of Bethlehem Church, so glad you are with us. Say that again with Pastor Jason, and it is so cool. Hope wherever you find yourself in this season, if you're in a car, on the treadmill, between errands or events, thanks for joining with us. And man, it's an honor for me in these early days of our podcast to bring in a friend who is an experienced podcaster, and so who may give me some tips in this, but a longtime friend, family friend, and deep connection to Bethlehem Church, my friend Mike Linch, who pastors at Northstar Church. Mike, so glad you're with us.
Jason, it is such an honor to be here, man. I am so, number one, welcome to the podcast world. Number two, there's nobody I would rather hang out with for a little while than you. And man, what you guys are experiencing at Bethlehem is just unbelievable. So anytime I get to be around it, it makes me better. Ain't no doubt about that.
Well, man, you make us better, and it is cool for me because you and I go like way back. Which I'm dated now with my gray, you can see in the camera here, but you got 10 years on me.
Yep.
But my family, my wife, really, I knew you before I knew the family, like the Bishop family. That's the crazy thing. And a lot of people here at Bethlehem Church that have a history with us know Adam. He was our executive pastor the other day. He's pastoring a great church. That's my brother-in-law. Nan, my wife, and I, 25 years this year, Mike. This will be our 25th year. That's right. 25 years. But I knew you. You came in and you were a youth pastor, first kid I saw at the time,
right.
maybe. I was an intern at the church I served at. Do you remember that?
I do.
And,
young Jason. I remember young Jason.
That's right. Full head of hair, a lot of vision, and not a lot of scars yet in life. And so it was the good days, you know? And so, but my in-laws have really, I mean, you can speak to Eddie and Lou Dell are like basically parents for you in y'all's life.
Yeah. So, man, in fact, when I was interviewing at First Baptist Kennesaw, the very first person I met outside the interview was Lou Dell Bishop. She was out in the parking lot outside the little offices there, and met her. Little did I know that her and Eddie, we would model our marriage after, we would model our parenting after, and then she would work for me. 23 years, I think, as of like today, it's 23 years she's been on staff with us. And man, I can't think of my life without Eddie and Lou Dell Bishop in it. They're just they're lifelong journeyers that are ahead of us that we've gotten to model after.
And there's nobody better. I say that because they're the grandparents to my kids. There's nobody better than them. And I always say, I tell Nan, that Nan, you just bring a sense of peace to anything you're a part of. Like anybody on our staff, if Nan's around, it's just like
that's exactly right.
And that is Eddie and Lou Dell.
Yep.
Obviously that's Christ in them and the Holy Spirit, but they've been faithful. Eddie served with us. You and I think we've moved past our bitterness when I called Eddie and Lou Dell. I wasn't worried about, I was like, man, when Mike finds out.
It was a rough day, Jason. It was a rough
day. I know it was, but I feel like I returned the favor.
You did.
When your daughter, who is a member at Bethlehem Church and worked with us for a few years in our community team before she had little Jack, I feel like I returned the favor by employing Mary Michael. And I remember when I did, you said, Jason, don't send her back.
That's exactly right. You officially removed her from the Lynch payroll because she was in the 12-stone residency, which means we're paying for her to work for 12 stones. That's how that worked. So I was just thankful that you really took her and put her on a real payroll. So that was a great deal.
And I wasn't against you paying me to work for her to work for me. But no, she was awesome, is awesome.
Yep.
she's leading a small group with my wife now of college age girls. And so Mary Michael and Jen's the best.
Yep.
And so they're here. They're super involved. But I told her when she called, she was so nervous when she called to let me know she was going to stay home. And me and her both have a little banter back and forth because Mary Michael was a flower girl in my wedding. Flower girl in my wedding, and she called and I told her, and she said, Jason, the conversation lasted 3 minutes. I go, let me ask you this, Mary Michael, did I say one thing sarcastic the whole time? She goes, you didn't. I said, there you go. I just said, fantastic. That's it. That'll be the only time in my life, right, that it will happen. In fact, she was at the house the other night leading the small group, and she was talking about Easter and when she's going to come. And I go, thank you for letting me know the day and the time you're going to be.
That's right. It's
That's
very
right.
important.
That's right. The best part, Mary Michael's the best, but like when Mary Michael let us know she was having little Jack, maybe in November, is that when they had Jack, I think?
Yep.
Okay. She was like, so I'm not going to be there for Christmas Eve services, Jason. I looked at her and go, Mary Michael, I don't know how we've ever done Christmas Eve without you. I mean, I will never know. And
she said this year wasn't as good as the other years, and it must be because she wasn't there. It has to be.
She wasn't sitting in her seat.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. So, well, look, man, talk about that though for a second, Mike, and just to encourage people. We don't, and this is not just a ministry world, but full circle moments. I mean, I do think just go in the value, and in this case, it'd be the Bishop family. And for me, I would just say before we hop in, I'm going to ask you some questions just to get your wisdom. But I'm appreciative, like for even you, before I took the job here, they called you were one of my references. And it was also for me, just we've been able to knock ideas around, both life, family, character. But I think for one thing, I would say we live in a very transient culture, which means people move, jobs change, communities change. The value of long-term relationships, those full circle, we don't get a lot of them in life.
No.
That doesn't mean relationships all end bad. Things just change. And I think I would just say for you now, looking at 30 plus years, even with my in-laws, but you and I have known each other for 30 plus years now, just the value of long-term relationships, just those moments, those full circle moments, and the faithfulness of God in that.
I think that the longevity, the beauty of ministry is longevity. And I think that there are things that just take a long time. Friendships take a long time. And you think of how we began our friendship. You were a student intern. I was a camp speaker, and that's where it all began. Right. And then over the course of time, maybe I mentored you for a season, and heck, you're in this phase of life now. I'm learning from you. And so there's that piece of it. I think the other piece, I was thinking a lot about this, Jason. I look out in our crowd at Northstar, and my best friend from second grade sitting in the crowd, and two of my college roommates are sitting in the crowd. And then you have people like the bishops and you. The beauty of it is it's really hard to be ego-driven when there are people there that knew you before anybody knew you. They know the real you. And I know Sam Chan said something a few years ago. He said, people know you at the level they enter the organization. So for so many people that walk in Bethlehem right now, they only know Pastor Jason, who is leading this unbelievable church. But then there are those people that know Jason when he was a little boy at Hebron growing up that look at you completely different. And it's nice sometimes for people to go, they don't even know Mike Linch, the pastor. They know Mike Linch, the baseball player in high school or whatever, and they don't think anything about you. You're just a guy. And that is, to me, the beauty of longevity is people can know the real you, and it's okay being me. I'm not my role. I'm just me. And to me, that's the beauty of longevity.
That's good. That is so good. And I even think in reflecting here, I think about people in my life. I'm looking, there's one across the screen you're not seeing. There's a guy named Jeremy Curtis that's been with me for a long time.
Yep.
I mean, he had long blonde hair, 19-year-old kid from South Georgia. Cindy. There's some people that now that you say that, you go, they knew you before.
That's right.
And there's not a whole lot of people and again, that's been one of the blessings for me doing ministry my whole life, not on purpose, but in a 30-mile radius.
Huge. Huge.
I mean, again, my brother said it one time because he's in Jacksonville, and he's like, for whatever reason, the Lord just gave you favor in that area.
Yep, that's right.
And so to go to serve at great churches where I was raised, like Hebron, man, so much of my vision broadened in my time at 12 Stone, and now to be at Bethlehem. But really, you're talking about the east side of Atlanta.
Yeah,
Northeast going toward Athens for 30 years of my ministry.
that's right.
It's a long time. And so that is cool. And so for me, I think that's one of the things that hopefully Mike, anybody that knows Mike would say you would not see, you're a very grounded dude, but I think you put good words to it right there, because you're just, when you're around an area that you've been around, people know you before the what is now.
That is
You know what I
exactly
mean?
right. And some of them know you as Claire's dad,
Yeah.
or they know you as that's Carson's dad.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
what
a
I tell.
that's
That's
a
a big deal.
big deal. And when you're there and they see you at ball fields and they see you around the community, man, there's a longevity. And I think longevity always breeds trust. And
Yeah.
when people know, man, take it to the bank, they're who they say they are. I've seen them on the biggest days. I've seen them on the worst days. And you can't buy that trust. You can't go to the bank
it's
and
culture.
borrow that.
No, that's the thing, man. I mean, you and I both know there was a time when the role of the pastor in a community was trusted.
That's right.
Now, any authority figure, there's just sometimes, just because of where our culture is, there's suspicion built in.
That's right.
So I think you're saying a lot right there when there's just a sense of, and I told, that's a great word. In my senior letter to Carson, he's at Liberty now, I said, there's coming a time where you're no longer going to be Jason's son. I'm going to be Carson's dad. That's
it.
how people will know me.
Yep.
And the Claire's graduating this year. I'll tell her the same thing, that and there's just a value in an everyday ordinariness of that. So that's big, man. That's big. Hey, look speaking, we've been kind of in a stream that we've referred to as everyday disciple, and all the idea behind that was like disciple is something we are every day. We use the words follower of Jesus, Jesus follower, Christ follower. The Gospels use the word disciple.
Yep.
And so it's an everyday thing. And so by that, it's not sacred, secular divide, if you will. It's like everything's all encompassing. And one of the things Jesus talks about it when Paul sums up the gospel, it really comes down to love God, love others. I mean, all these commandments right on this.
Yep.
And one of the things that you've done well that whether people know that or not, and I've said it a few times when you spoke for us, but our community posture, by community, Barrow, Walton, Oconee, the area geographically we're located in, we want to have a mentality of being a church in the community, or excuse me, a church, not just in the community, but a church that's for the community.
Yep.
A lot of that came from, again, I think more and more over the last 2 decades, you and I have some experience longer than that, but the church in many ways, if you were not positioned that way, you got trouble. Whereas 2 decades ago, that idea of a church in the community, and not just for the community, but being for the community for us came a lot from watching how you guys just love with no strings attached. And by that, hosting things, sponsoring things, finding good work in the community that were already happening, whether it be on the schools, stuff like that, and bringing a gospel presence to it, not recreating the wheel. And so much of that is being an everyday disciple. That mentality that for you, Mike, that you and I both came from more of the traditional, maybe just a model that's 20 or 30 years old now. And you really were a pioneer, and Northstar was a pioneer in repositioning, at least in my mind, the church in the community, being a church for the community. Talk about that in your wiring and really how God shaped that in the early days.
Yeah. So much of that, that was foreign to me. Student ministry 1990s was, hey, call the school, see if I can go eat lunch with my kids.
That's right.
And that was the deal. And so at that point, Cobb County was closed. I couldn't do that. So Northstar starts 1997. We had a guy on our original staff, and his dad was a volunteer fireman in Fairdale, Kentucky. And he said, man, here's what they did in this little town. I think we can do this in our community. And he said, I talked to people out, and they serve with the United Way, and they serve in all these other organizations, which are great organizations, but they do it because the church doesn't do anything. I think we can do that. So basically, he created a model where he said, I want us to be the first call for help. I want the police to know they can call us. I want the city government to know they can call us. I want the schools to know they can call us. And so we started this mindset of, okay, so what would that look like? And I remember those first meetings of people going, man, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, the church doesn't do that, because the church didn't do that. Sit down with a principal, then they'll go, what do you want out of it? And you go, nothing. We just want to serve you. We want to come alongside and make the school better. And man, those early, I look back at that and go, how in the world did we even get started? And then today I left my campus 30 minutes ago, and Cobb County schools are all over our campus. So now it's gone from us going to them. Now they're like, hey, can we use your facilities for our offsites? Can we do counselor training, suicide training, blah, blah, blah? Of course you can do it. And now they're all there. And that first call for help was so big because that's trust. It is, we know you're going to answer. And so many churches, Jason, are great about doing a community weekend. But man, it is not a weekend. It is a 365 a day. You gotta be there for people when they need it. And our real learning on it came from a guy named Robert Lewis that was at Fellowship Bible in Little Rock, and he wrote the book. What was the name of the book? But anyways, Irresistible Influence. And he talked about the church's job is to build bridges. Community,
which was that's early days, back when it was kind of still like Christendom was still like, especially in the South. That was early.
He's the one that said the words. We're like, yeah, that's it. We want to be the central place that builds bridges to government, schools, businesses, nonprofits, and we want to be the hub. We want to open up lanes of communication by all these groups. Dude, watching that come together has been the greatest thing. And it's, do we share the gospel every time we give a hot dog out of the school? No. But you build the bridge and you earn the trust to share the gospel when you give the hot dog out at school. Because when the crisis hits their lives, when they're going to go to church, and they're going to go to the church that they met, not the church they'd never heard of. And that's what we found to be true for all these years.
Yeah, and so much of, no doubt, I mean, so much of that is influential and instrumental in our ministry philosophy and mindset. I mean, I think we've got 3 people employed, but then we have that just are meeting needs, being a networker, and finding ways to serve, and the second piece, to empower people to serve in the community. So my wife and I were up here for a foster. We did respite night, man, foster families. It was awesome. You know, I think about, speaking of crisis, you know, I look back at, we had our school shooting about 18 months ago at Appalachia High School, which was national, everybody. And we'd seen a lot of fruit from community, but you realized in the middle of that, just a few weeks ago now, again, 18 months later, still baptizing kids and students that moment of crisis is an awakening began in their life, and the church they had a connection to, or the church they were familiar with, was Bethlehem Church. That's because of a lot of time and effort of just saying yes. Our language is, our staff I've taught, we have a bias to say yes. That's our bias.
Yep.
The bias is to say yes. And I agree with you. I think sometimes it's like, is every situation, do we end a serving opportunity by saying, now sit down, we're going to tell you the gospel? No. But every serving opportunity is a bridge to the gospel.
Oh, you plant seeds, man.
To get us to that moment. You know what I mean?
Well, you think
That's good.
you think if something tragic happened and you've had a neighbor that has picked up your mail, they've come by your house to check on you, they've brought cookies over when things were good, life was
Yep.
good. When tragedy happens, and then all of a sudden all these people start showing up to tell you something, and the neighbor's there, you're like, I'm gonna listen to the neighbor. They've been there. They keep coming. They keep showing up at our house.
It's good.
That's what the church is doing. You're showing up at their house, and you're making. And then here's the part we don't ever think about. If you make the school better, more people want to live in your community to go to that school, which makes the community better, which means more people live there, which give us more people to reach. And so
Yep.
that's the back end of this whole thing, is it makes everything better when you do it.
Yeah, I think about that line that talks about we overestimate what we can do in a short
That's
term.
right. Yep.
And we underestimate what can happen over a long period of time. And I think that that staying power, that posture of Christ, that help with no strings attached in a society where everybody's angling for something,
Yep.
I think that the church is refreshing, or that the church is just for you. The line we use is, you may not agree with everything we teach and believe, and by that I mean scripture and the gospel,
Yep.
but what we want to do is make it hard for you to argue this community's not better because we're here.
100%.
And so that's
100%.
kind of been the line that we've used for more than a decade now. You may not, but that the area that we're in is there. Now, I think that applies also individually, Mike. So what I mean is, you think about the parable of the Good Samaritan,
Yeah.
Jesus taught, and that kind of comes off answering the question, who's my neighbor?
Yep.
Right? That really comes the kind of off this, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, who's my neighbor?
Yep.
And there's a lot of context to that, Jewish, Gentile, Samaritan, all that stuff was going on. But the idea is simply, in the parable, is the person in your natural life path who has need. That's your neighbor. That's ultimately what's going on. And I think this, Mike, because you work with a lot of coaches, a lot of principals, a lot of business leaders. Oftentimes, that being Jesus, how would I say it, or loving your neighbor, nobody's against it, but it's like we, again, underestimate our
Yeah.
influence because of our busyness, because of our personal pressures, because of our distractedness, because of all the things we get going around us. We miss just the people in the natural life path, be that the hallway, the cubicle, the field house, the police station. Man, talk about just that in general, of going for the everyday disciple,
Yeah.
just the simple act of oftentimes evangelism, or being Christ's with skin on, if you will, to use a term that we use, that we miss the opportunity because there's so much going on in our life. Nobody's against it. What I found is nobody's against it, but we underestimate just our presence and the influence we can have if we're intentional. Talk about what you've seen in people's lives that you've got to mentor, or just trying to empower or unleash that in influencers in your church.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You aren't where you are by accident. I don't think God's an accidental God who gifted you and equipped you and put you where he put you. And so we say this phrase all the time: God put you where he put you for a reason bigger than you. That person that you happen to run into, I believe, is a divine appointment. So here's the question at the end of the day is, when I get out of bed every morning, am I going for my agenda, or am I working on God's agenda? So I remember hearing Richard and Henry Blackaby years ago say, leadership is moving people to your agenda. Spiritual leadership is when you're moving people onto God's agenda. And man, when you recognize, oh, so he put me here, this assignment is temporary, so there must be something for him. So we use a phrase a lot. We've got to learn to move at the speed of people, meaning I can't be so busy I miss the people. Because, going through the Gospels, Jesus' best interactions were all interruptions.
Yes.
And man, I can get so focused on my agenda. I walk right by so every afternoon I'm sitting in a bullpen as a high school baseball coach. I don't have the time for it. I don't know why I'm still doing it. I keep saying every year I'm gonna quit. But
No,
yet I
your
have all
family,
these
Mayor Michael doesn't believe you'll ever quit. Keep going.
I probably won't tell her. But and I'm assuming she's not going to listen to this, so I know she's
That's
not going
right.
to hear that. But I have all these meetings during the day with some pretty movers and shaker people.
Sure.
But the most important conversation may be a 10th grade kid whose girlfriend broke up with him. That may be my conversation that day. Am I thinking about my meetings tomorrow? Am I there in the bullpen with that 10th grader who doesn't know Jesus, who's lost as a goose, who doesn't know what to do next, and he just needs help with his girlfriend, and he's going to show up at church on Sunday, and he's going to get saved because of a interruption to my agenda? So do I see that, or am I looking past him? And man, when everyday disciples get, my job is to move through life like Jesus did, dude, when we get that, we can change the world.
Yeah. And we say on map and on mission, wherever you're at on the map, you're on a mission. I think the other line that we use a lot is like there's a speed of life and there's a speed of love, and they're two different things.
Two different things.
And that simple idea of, I like what you said, it's not by accident you are where you are, and you are who you are.
That's exactly
Your
right.
wiring,
That's right.
your gifts, your arena that you're in.
Yep.
And you interview a lot of leaders. I mean, Mike, if you guys aren't listening, Lynch with a Leader, I know there's a lot of people in the church that have subscribed to, and you've been doing it a few years now.
Yeah, almost 10 years, man.
What do I know? Almost 10 years.
Crazy.
I said few years. Life happens fast. But you've hosted some influential people. I mean, just, names that from coaches and business leaders, authors that a lot of people would know. And I've listened to a good many. My wife listens to all of them. But are there some common themes like that you go, it doesn't matter what sphere you're in, that leaders, I think, both deal with, and there's just maybe some characteristics that are true. Because I think, again, what you said, it's just humans being humans at the end of the day, that different people with different gift mix and being faithful where God has placed them with the gifts he's placed them with. But if there's some themes that you've just seen over your decade now that reoccur when you think about some of these influential leaders that you hear again and again and again and again, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally know what you're saying. It's funny. I was thinking about that when you shot that question over, because you go from Vince Dooley, right, who was at University of Georgia, to
I said, you're
a business icon, like Horst Schulze or some of these guys. So what do they have in common? A lot. One of the things, probably I'm gonna say this underlying, everybody I've interviewed are all believers at some level, right? They know Jesus, so that's sort of the baseline. There's an incredible kindness to all of them, which is shocking. It really surprises me every time. You're like, they really aren't in a hurry. God, they're just really nice people. So that's underlying. There's two traits I think they've all had. Number one, every one of them are intentionally curious. They are lifelong learners. Every one of them. I have yet to meet one that was done. They're all thinking about what's next and they're trying to figure it out. It's the craziest thing. And it really doesn't matter if they've written the greatest book ever. They're trying to figure out, well, what do I do next with that? How do I navigate now this season? And they ask great questions back to you. They're intentionally curious and they're learners. The second thing I would tell you about all of them, they have all mastered the mundane, meaning we know them for their success. They didn't get there overnight. Dude, they figured out how to do that 80% to 90% of life that nobody else wants to do, and they just keep showing up every day. And you were talking about a pastor earlier from a network you're in. They just keep showing up every day, and they just do the stuff nobody wants to do, and they just keep going to the ground and doing the work, And then all of a sudden you turn around and you're like, dude, they're really a big deal. They don't see themselves that way. They just still see themselves as that 28-year-old guy or lady who's just plowing ground, man. They're just working. God just finally brought the harvest after 30 years of mundaneness. They're just doing the mundane, the everyday time. I was interviewing a young lady here recently. So she was head of customer service for Chick-fil-A. She started there as the fitness instructor, became the customer service director. Then she worked directly for Dan Cathy, and then now she's out on her own. And she said, I was with Dan recently at Trillith, and Dan was showing me how to sweep the streets for the cobblestone. Like, so it looks
so
right.
good. Yeah.
And she said, why is Dan Cathy sweeping streets? Because Dan Cathy does mundane things because he wants it to be excellent. And I think that's a common trait.
And we know them for extraordinary or their achievements.
That's right.
I always say in the world of, I do not envy this young generation coming up, because you and I didn't come up in a world of viral clips.
Correct.
Where ex-pastor, this guy's got 1.5 million. And so I tell my young staff all the time, you see ministry through, what you don't see is all the hours of the mundane right. And all the years of not anybody paying any attention. And I think that's just in general. We see, man, you see the years of, or we see the success of a game or the success of a sale of a book or whatever. The line we talk about a lot of times, there's the work God does in you and the work God does through you.
That's right.
There's the work with your name on it. And there's the work with that God's doing in you with his name on the inside of you,
man.
right?
That's right.
And so you're talking about people that we know them by their name, what their name's on.
Yep.
But the mundane, even in the discipline of quiet time, from prayer but just the intentional curiosity of just keep asking questions. I've been on an Old Testament kick, Genesis, for the last month, and it's like, just in general, like I'm like that. I find it when I ask or I get curious, actually my passion for what I'm doing goes deeper.
100%.
Right?
Yes.
I'm not doing it for preaching. Now, it'll probably end up preaching at some point, but it's just like, no, dude, I didn't know. There's just stuff that you're going, why didn't I ever think of that? Why didn't I ever do that? And so there's seasons that's Bible for me, and there's other seasons that leadership for me. Right now, it's way more Bible. But then there's other things like I've never thought about that. But I do love that intentional curiosity in a world of information overload.
Oh, totally overload. But they never assume they know. They never assume they've got the corner on the market. I remember years ago, I told this story at a leadership event the other day. Andy Stanley came in to do a church planners meeting for me. God, it's probably 20 years ago. And he brought our mutual friend Donald Wise with him. So there's probably 100 church planners in the room from across Georgia and the Southeast. And Andy was so kind. He just came over to do a little event for him. And he was doing a Q&A with them. And Donald was with him. I was like, oh, yeah, what are you, Andy's driver now? I was giving him business.
Yeah, that's
He's
right.
like, well, yeah, I was Andy's driver. But he said, Andy told me to bring a notebook and write down the things they were saying, because the smartest guys in the church world right now are church planners. And he said, write down the things they're saying, because they got the best ideas, because they don't have money. They're trying to figure it out. I thought, that's brilliant.
That's right.
That's brilliant. That's why Andy's Andy. That's why he ended up where he ended up. And man, anybody who's where they are paid their dues. They paid their dues, and they kept doing it, and they're still paying it. They're still paying it.
I remember organizationally years ago, and this is the line, because the untold thing is, like, let's say Northstar, Bethlehem, you fill in the church. We're doing the exact same thing we were doing 40 years ago. There's worship, there's teaching the Bible, there's nothing new under the sun. Nope. Now, there may be variations, and there may be a little LED screen that wasn't there years ago, for cultural context. But I remember another mutual friend, Dan Ryland, said, and it may have been Kevin Meyer, so one of the two, but he's talking about organizationally the same thing as you're talking about personally, the ability and the minutia. This is stuck with me, and once every 3 years, when I look at my staff and can tell they're a little wary, I've said, guys, resilient redundancy is the magic of momentum.
Yep.
Resilient
Boy, that's good.
redundancy is the magic of momentum.
That's
Your
really good.
ability to do the same thing again and again
Yep.
and again and again, like it's the first time, and you're curious and you're hungry. That's it, man. That's the whole deal. Personally, I still got bills to pay.
That's right.
I still got grass to cut. I've still got in that resilient redundancy in your own personal life, but then in the church of sometimes it's not the new thing. It's showing up and doing the thing again and again and again. I do think you and I sometimes, this is a little sidebar, and I'm going to let you speak on this. Sometimes you can tell when in our arena somebody gets distracted.
Yeah.
Because there's something not bad. I don't know guys' ambitions or anything like that, but you can tell the local church is that resilient redundancy is wearing on them. And so there's a side, it's not bad, because I do think just like anybody, there's a grind to what we do.
Yep. Big time. And it is exhausting, and it is 24/7. And it's, we're in a world, the person you may help the most leaves you, and they leave you mad, and you got to let them go, and you got to love them when they leave. You don't get to say ugly things about them. So you live in that world, and therefore I believe for us, as redundant as our world, and we have to build in the redundancy of good rhythms, which I know you're really good at, of going, okay, I'm going to bust my tail, and then I'm disappearing. And I'm going to bust my tail. And I always know, if I've got something on my calendar to look forward to, I'm totally fine. But the minute I schedule out and I don't have anything coming that's a downtime, I'm in trouble, because the resiliency goes away. Redundancy is all I focus on, and it gets boring, and it gets old, and it's incredibly repetitive, and it's new seasons, new faces, same problems, and you get overwhelmed by it. And that's why those resiliently redundant rhythms are incredibly, and I don't need 3 weeks. I just need a week. I just need 3 days sometimes, just to unwind, refresh, and get back out there again. So
I was with, and I texted you before I went down there a few months back. I was at Cascade Hills, and I was doing an event for pastors, but Bill Purvis, he said great words. He said, you're always building, and you're, what did he say? You're always you're always building, and you're always battling.
That's it.
That's
always.
the job.
That's the job.
You're always building, and you're not battling and not building, or you're not building and not battling. You're in the middle of trying to build people and battle at the same time, by battle the forces of darkness.
That's right.
Or, you're battling something internally leadership wise, but the pressure of building, and all I mean by building is not like, I'm just talking about in general, taking the next step, taking new ground. You're always building, because Bill was like, X number of years doing it, Jason, you're always building, you're always battling. That's the job. And I go, that's it. That's it. You're building and you're battling, one of the two. And Mike, you and I do think again, sidebar, then I want to ask you 2 more questions before we finish our time. I think in people who work in the people business, and by people business, not everything's quantifiable on a spreadsheet. Not everything's, quarterly sales numbers or anything, which are all great, but you're in the people business. I do think I'd love you to talk about this, because you and I both are people-oriented leaders. We like people. We get our energy from people. You more than anybody I've ever met. I'm not far behind you, but I do think the emotional toll that does take. And what I mean by this is, I have found, I would love you, no matter what I say, the wins, when you celebrate with people and there's great God moments, but boy, those moments when, and what I mean by this, the slights, the people who leave and walk away, it just takes a tough. The guys go, hey man, that's just part of it. You can't worry about it. I want it 20 years in, and I go, nah, you're lying. Nah, it bothers you. it wears you out because you love people. You know what I mean? No matter how tough, and I mean, because you've done it longer than me, and you've seen some great gospel fruit.
Yes.
And Northstar's been faithful for a long time. But I also know, I don't even think it's because I battle. Is this my ego? Is this my insecurity? Or is this just human?
Yes,
And
I think all three.
Kind of settled. Yeah, I think it's all of it. Speak to that for a second.
Yeah, it stinks because we want everybody to stay. We want everybody to be happy. We want our church to be the church that they're in for the rest of their lives. And sometimes, and I just go back to Ecclesiastes, it's just seasons. And so for me, I think it still hurts. I think I wear it less than I ever have now. And I think as long as they're leaving and there's not a broken relationship,
that's good.
If we're good, I'm good. I heard Steve Cuss say something a couple years ago. It was so good for me. He said, you know what I learned in ministry, Mike, is only he can say with his Australian accent. He said, you don't know how many lunches I went out to ungruntle the disgruntled. And you know what? You're not going to ungruntle the disgruntled. You just got to let them gruntle. And you got to be okay with it. It was such a great line. And he said, when I gave that up, it was such a release to me. I don't know how many lunches I've gone out to try to talk somebody out of something, and I quit. After I had that conversation with Steve, I'm like, you know what? You're right. I'm going to tell people I love them. We just did it recently. Great family who felt like I handled something differently than they would have handled it, which, hey, Ann feels that way too. And so I agree. I maybe should have, but they left. But I said, I want y'all to know I will always love you. I want Northstar to always be an open door. And they thumbs upped it. Okay, that's fine. But I'm not going to ungruntle them. Yeah, I'm just not going to do it. So that was super helpful to me. And when he said it, I just started laughing because I feel like I can talk anybody out of anything, and it never worked out well.
I'm the worst. I'm like, my staff's in here laughing on the other side of the camera. I'm like, give me 5 minutes with them.
Yes.
And just give me 5 minutes with them. I can win them over. They may not. And again, I am learning 10 years behind you. And X number of thousands of people, you just go, it's still, that's a good word. As long as it's, man, bless you, we're for you. The kingdom of God is big. You know, Larry Osborne always says, why is it that Starbucks don't care what Starbucks you go to? You know, they're like, we're just glad you're going to Starbucks. And I always go, I hear you, Larry, but you're also old. You know what I mean? And so, and you're, because he always says that, man, they don't care what Starbucks you're going to as long as you're going to Starbucks. And the idea, it doesn't matter. I agree with that. But when you have personal relationship and time in, you're like, hey, man. And I always think if you'll let me explain myself,
that's
then
right.
You'll go, oh, okay, I see it now.
It's so true. And the reality is, it is. And this is the line we use. In fact, we use it Sunday. You and I were talking about a staff member we got leaving who I adore. She's awesome. She's got a new season coming. And this is what I said on stage with her Sunday. I pray we're a screen door church.
Yeah.
The screen door is always open. We don't close doors on people because everything's for a season. And we've had people leave Northstar and we didn't throw shots at them. They didn't throw shots at us, and we've seen them come back because it's the reality of life. And if you stay around long enough, you see the full. You see the full. You were with a buddy of mine, Rob McDowell, and Brian Beloy, who's another close friend. We call ourselves the solar system of churches because we're enough alike that people can just bounce to each other. But typically they all come back, and it's just the way that it works.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is. It is I do think one of the things that I was talking with another pastor, Jeremy at Woodstock, and we talked about how I do think that the digital world, everything, it just has become easier for people to do that.
It is.
And it means we've got to be more and more less offended. And by that, I mean, not necessarily they're looking over their shoulder, but all of the content and all the experts. And then the one thing that you may be, it's just been interesting to me watch the evolution of that. No matter, and God has, I mean, it's been a phenomenal year, been a phenomenal season for us. We have nothing but thanks, but I just know that the Lord continues to mature me and grow me through pain, not victory.
That's exactly. Well, and it's so funny. Most people don't leave over something that I've taught out of Scripture. It's something current events that wasn't addressed like they liked. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. So
Right.
if you're leaving because I don't teach Jesus well, that's a harder thing to bite than you didn't say what I wanted you to say one way or another way. And that's been the new evolution for me since 2020. That didn't happen before then. And now
Agreed.
2020 to 2026, dude, it's just pick the topic. And it
Man.
could be something. So
Yes. And then sometimes you're preaching and it's like, well, were you meaning this? I'm like, no, I was just talking. I wasn't even talking about that event. I was just talking
That's
about what the
exactly
Bible
right.
said.
Yep.
I wasn't trying to. I can remember when it was at its worst. We were gathering post-COVID, and I literally got on my knee, and somebody was like, "Hey man, were you being like Colin Kaepernick? Were you making a statement?" I'm like, whoa! I was praying like Jesus was on his knees waiting for praying, man. I didn't even know what he's talking about. But again, it was in the middle of COVID, racial stuff, and somehow I was making. I'm going, but you just kind of have to release that stuff and go, man, oh man, oh man. I think you do a good job too. Are you pretty? I would love to ask you this, and then have you found yourself pretty disciplined with your social media? Obviously, you're older, but you're Mike. You are. Have you found yourself having to build boundaries? And then when I talk to other pastors, where that's at, because there's some guys that have their own team that do all that stuff. I kind of got people that help me here and there. What have you found practices in your own life, or is that just something that's like, but now you got grandkids, you probably look at their pictures, you know, how does that work for you?
So on X, I put out verses and scripture and leadership content. LinkedIn, leadership content. Instagram, I may post a family pic every now and then. I stay out of. I made a statement the other week, and I was reminded why I don't do it the other week. And the statement went out 5 minutes,
exactly
and my
what
phone.
Statement it was.
I'm
Not that
down,
I know, but I know the event you're talking about.
Dude, I'm down in St. Simon speaking at an event. My phone just starts pinging, and so I don't do that, but I will. But I keep my content number one. I don't think people want to know what I eat for lunch or where I went to buy clothes in the afternoon. I don't think anybody cares. I may post a family pic every now and then, or post something that's going on in our community. Or really, it's more my podcast content.
That's good.
That's where I live. I don't get in social media debates with people.
That's so good.
Now, I don't want to be a shock jock. That ain't my job.
No.
My job.
Well, let me say this, and I so appreciate you, man. You are an influence in my family's life. You're an influence in my life. I am better. Bethlehem Church is better with your influence. We always enjoy having you here teaching on the weekend when you're available. I had a blast in your new building last fall.
So good.
What a great! It was so cool. And if you were to encourage. Give you one last question, because there's a lot of leaders in our church, and everybody has some level of leadership, whether it be in their own home or in the sphere of influence God has given them. If you could give them to somebody who's living the everyday life, they're following Jesus, they're either they are living what they're called to do, or they got a job because they're trying to take care of their family. But either way, they want to honor Jesus with their life. What would you just say as an encouragement that's not from their pastor, Jason, but from a voice that just goes, hey, man, let me encourage you right where you're at? Could you just kind of maybe end us there?
I would love to. So that goes back to a statement we said a second ago, Jason. God put you where he put you for a reason bigger than you, and that may be as a mom and a dad. My greatest contribution to the kingdom may not be what I do. It may be the kids I raise. And was I Jesus every day to them, at the dinner table, in the car, at the ball game, all the things. The second part of that I'll follow up with. Every Monday I host a Pro Scout College Baseball Coach Bible Study. There's a Pro Scout. He's MLB Scout of the Year in 2023. Kevin leans into so we had this past Monday 96 guys from across the country on a Zoom call. In a KB, he leans in and he looks in that little box and he says, I know you may wear the scout the uniform of a scout sitting in a bleacher. You may be a coach that's been put in charge of a high school player, college player, minor league player, whatever it is. But I want you to remember this. He says this every week. you're a minister in disguise. God put you there to represent him. Don't ever forget it.
Good.
And so we
That's
had
good.
two of our guys, and I'll close with this. They ended our call the other week. So last year on our call, these guys, they met on the call. Last year, they both lost parents. And so that came up on the call. It came up in our little chat area. Hey, pray for me. I'm losing my mom. Pray for me. I lost my dad. Well, they're both D1 coaches. They connected offline. They began to pray together every Friday just to encourage each other during that season. Well, this past spring, they met for the first time on the field. Their teams were playing each other in a weekend series, and they walked up to home plate to exchange lineup cards. It's one of my favorite stories I've ever heard. They just told it. And while they're exchanging lineup cards, they're like, hey, we pray together every Friday. They both got their Lock Eyes with Jesus bracelets on from the call. They said, we pray together every Friday. Blues, it's 4 umpires. Would you mind if we prayed for each other? So I'm going to pray for his team. He's going to pray for me and my team. And can we pray for you guys? And at a home plate, 2 everyday disciples put their arms around umpires in front of a couple thousand people, and 2 teams, rival teams, put their arms around each other and prayed for each other. Prayed that they would honor Jesus. Pray that the umpires would see Jesus in them. Hello. I've been around baseball a long time. I've never seen it.
That's so good.
Oh, my gosh. That is a minister in disguise. That's a minister in disguise. And the impact those guys are going to make, that story will be told for years. And what it did, Jason, it dropped a dose of courage. We told that story on a Monday. A coach watched it on Wednesday. On Friday, I get a text from a local high school coach who goes, Mike, you're not going to believe this. I did this Friday night at my baseball game. Public school. He said, I've never had the guts to do it. I never thought I was qualified. And Friday night, I asked the umpires if I could pray, and the other coach if I could pray for them. And Mike, I did it. That everyday disciple, just being Jesus. That's
right
it.
where you're at.
Yep.
That's it. Man, that's so good. So encouraging, man. And that mark, they don't know the stories that'll be told from 20 years from now. I remember I was at a baseball game, and you know what I mean? And just that, again, overestimate, underestimate. And I think most of the time we overestimate the influence people have on social media, and we underestimate the influence people have every day.
Totally.
And I think that is such a big deal. Bro, I love you.
Love you too, buddy.
I appreciate you. And, man, we can't wait to be with you and have you teaching with us this summer. And we love you, bro.
Love you too, buddy. Have a great week,
See you,
Jason.
bud.
Thanks, man.
All right, man. Bye.